Hello and welcome to day 22, the final day of the World Cup Minute. My name's Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Glorious, Josh. I cannot imagine a better capstone to...
Yeah.
I mean, this was, at the end of the day, it was all about the World Cup Minute podcast and how are we going to finish it, not let alone the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022.
They did it for us.
We have been talking daily about what an incredible tournament it has been. What did we do to deserve that on top of everything we've already been given?
I don't think people who haven't followed, like people who don't follow, European football, understand just how crummy the last couple of years have been. You know, how much we've had to sit through if you're a Premier League fan. Just suspended matches, like the worst COVID protocols. So some matches were just getting suspended on a dime, like double game weeks if you're doing fantasy. Just like so much chaos. Like to the point where it was just exhausting to even follow the sport. And then we have all the lead up to this World Cup. It's in Qatar. Horrible human rights violations, anti-gay, like all the just awful. Our greatest football writer dies. Like there's so much stuff that happened, and then but the actual matches. And not just not just a game by, it's like the matches were amazing. The best players played at their best, right? If Mbappé and Messi were absolutely at their best today and really throughout the tournament. And just, having a South American country win, which I think was really cool as well. Just to sort of, undercut some of the European dominance of recent decades. Just sort of every part of the narrative, if you can remove the kind of politics of it for a minute, was just incredible, and it was just so fun. Even the bad matches were fun. It was. I agree with you. I mean, because cast your mind back to the 2018 World Cup. I can barely remember it. Right? There was more drama in today's World Cup final than there was in whatever it was. 36, how many matches? I don't know. 30 plus matches that they played in the 4 years ago. It was just, you do not get World Cups like this very often. It was really special, and anyone who was lucky enough to watch the World Cup final today really got to see something that they'll remember. I don't want to sound dramatic here, but for the rest of their lives, I think it was really about as good as a sporting event can get. It was that good.
It really was. The drama was second to none, as you said. The players who stepped up were the stars that you would have written into that script. It is, you're talking about the buildup and the issues with Qatar, and then there is always a section of the sports community that wishes that politics would be kept out of sports. On the one hand, you can't separate them. On the other hand, when the football was played in this tournament, it was so easy to let that fall away because the sports of this tournament was so special, and then that kind of carries me as someone who is interested in the stories outside of the actual 90 minutes. It carries me through because I'm like, oh, right. This is why it is all worth it to fight through all the crap to get these tournaments put on that FIFA is corrupt, et cetera, et cetera. Because once the football starts getting played, once you get this level of talent together and this style of passion that you can really only see on display in an international tournament. You go and you watch the Champions League in Europe, the greatest club competition. The technicality of the tactics in the football is probably streets above what we've watched in Qatar. But to feel it, I mean, I have no skin in the game with France or Argentina, and I am in tears along with Angel Di Maria multiple moments during this match, and I don't even know why, because it was so powerful to see both what Argentina and what France were doing. You'd written Mbappe off after like
75 minutes.
70, yes. You went to great pains to put the minutes that the goals were scored here.
Because it wasn't, there wasn't a, this match is Bill Simmons has this column he started about like levels of losing. It's like all different types. There's like the guillotine match where you feel like you're going to lose the whole time and then you finally do. And there's, but this one was what you might call, ultimately Argentina did win, but it was this wasn't the script match, right?
Yeah.
80 minutes into that match, I don't know, anyone was sitting around thinking, oh yeah, just give it another couple minutes and suddenly France is going to take this match with the scruff of their neck. There was never a moment when it felt like France were in this match until the 80th minute. It was shocking. The pen was fine, like legit pen. No big deal. I mean, as legit as the Di Maria pen in the in the first whatever that was 23rd minute. And so
I don't think those pens are worth arguing about as
no, I'm just no, sure. Yeah, it's I hate arguing. Arguing pens is like arguing about refs. I have no interest in doing it. It happens, either happened or it didn't, right? Yeah. Once it's over, it's over. But then literally a minute later, you see Mbappé come down and score another goal, and a really nice goal. I mean, I was at the Black Horse in Brooklyn watching with some friends, including a Patreon supporter, Alex Shepard, an old buddy
Alex.
of ours, and it was a great energy there. And someone was saying it was basically they scored the 2 goals that Argentina scored in the first half, right? Like they had they just quick counter goal, right? It's very similar to the Argentina goal, which was beautiful, by the way. The Di Maria goal in the 36th minute was stunning. I mean, it all starts with a Messi pass.
Yeah, and McAllister, Brighton legend,
our boy,
soon to be Barcelona star.
Yeah,
but yeah, he had an incredible tournament. Great to see him have that moment.
It's crazy, right? Because everyone, when Basuma moved from Brighton in the summer, and it was like, oh man, like that midfield is going to look a lot different without Basuma in it. And I mean, they don't play the same position, but who knew that McAllister was just waiting there to become the dominant player and he's been awesome for Brighton too. It's not like it's not like he sort of came out of complete nowhere this year.
Yeah, when the game turns, as you say, when Mbappe starts scoring those goals, it was really interesting. I've been paying a lot of attention to the TIFO guys at The Athletic. They've been doing some incredible tactical breakdowns. Curious to see what they'll have to say about this, but just from my spectator point of view, it was so clear that the wheels were flying off of Argentina only because they had poured... They throttled France in the first half almost just by sheer emotion and determination. Yeah. It felt to me like tactics be damned. There was like France could have had any lineup, any formation. They were not going to beat Argentina because it was just sort of fate for them. And then you see there is an expiration date or an expiration timestamp on fate and emotional play.
That sounds like a No Fear T-shirt. There's an expiration date on fate.
But it turns out there isn't, Josh. But they were able to actually still grit their way to the end and. But yeah, I was really afraid for Argentina when those goals started flying in, and France they were going to be the ones who were going to score the third goal if anybody was in regular time. Yeah.
Oh, totally, and the extra time too, right at the end there. I mean, Emi Martinez, who I just love. I'm not even sure when I started to really. I mean, anyone who listens to Always Cheating knows that I'm just a complete Emi Martinez fanboy and have been for several years now. And I'm not sure even where it started. It was before the Copa America. I mean, he was a great fantasy player when he moved to Villa, but it was sort of like he came on late for, anyone who doesn't know the Emi Martinez story. Emi Martinez was a longtime backup for Arsenal. Bernd Leno gets injured, the starting keeper for Arsenal. This is like, 3 or 4 years ago now?
Yeah, that all comes back to Brighton. That was against Brighton. Leno gets injured, and Martinez then gets his shot.
And I believe that was during the summer. I think that was during the summer 2020 COVID restart matches. I think that's when Emi Martinez got his moment. Don't quote me on that, Brandon, but I'm fairly sure that's when it happened. And so Emi Martinez plays really well. Arsenal decides to stick with Leno, and Emi Martinez moves to Aston Villa and is brilliant for Aston Villa. Has a really terrific season. So he plays so well that he gets a call up to Argentina. Once he goes to Argentina, he's incredible there as well. And it's very similar to this World Cup, and they Argentina and Brazil go to penalty kicks in the 2021 Copa America, and Emi Martinez is doing exactly what he did today, making brilliant saves and thrusting those hips, just like making out with the pole. I loved it.
I had this moment with Emi during the match when he was called upon for his heroics, where I don't gravitate toward players who use those theatrics. But in defensive Emi Martinez and defensive goalkeepers are out there alone. They have nobody. They will be the first ones to take the blame. He knew, and goalkeepers know, they have to employ every technique in the book, whether it's physical or mental, and credit to Emmy for knowing what he has to do, and he got it done, and he was in tears and very humble until he receives the Golden Glove trophy and decides to use it as a prosthetic.
It was great. Well, it's just I'm not drawn to those kind of players either. I'm really not, and I just think for him it speaks to his personal charisma. I just find him very charismatic as a person, in whatever way that comes through on a TV screen. But he's just very likable in my opinion. And I can see if this is the first time you ever saw him was this World Cup, how it might be a little off-putting to you. But I think Emi Martinez is considered to be a pretty nice guy in general. Sure. And so, like you said, and honestly, we've just never seen this from a keeper. I think what I like is the sheer gamble of it, to like be this cocky, and then be like, oh yeah, I'm also going to win the Copa America and the World Cup back-to-back years. And it's and he's still at Villa. Maybe being at Villa helps too, right? If he was, Man City's keeper and he was doing all this stuff, it might be a little harder to still like him. Like there might be too much success. But
that speaks to this final and also this tournament for me. Is I being a Fulham supporter, I'm often drawn to the underdog team, or the team that is playing more for pride than success. But this whole tournament, all the way down to the final, I found myself just rooting for the best players to do something amazing. I would count Emi Martinez among them because we knew what he was capable going into this match. But I was thrilled after the first half to say, okay, Messi's finally gonna have the ultimate coronation here. I'm on board for this. And then Mbappé comes through and tries to spoil the party. I'm like, well, I guess I'm kind of on board for this too. This is also amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, he almost scored 4 goals. Like, he scored a hat trick in a losing World Cup final. I mean, that is you will probably never ever see that in a World Cup final again. That's a rare thing in a regular match, right? Yeah. It's not that common. Like, you don't often see like Erling Haaland get a hat trick in a losing match, right? It's just an unusual thing to have happened. And granted, 2 of them were pens, but he also got his nice individual goal as well. And Messi gets the pen. He also gets, it's actually amazing because he gets the pen, and then he gets that kind of crazy goal. It looked like a goal in real time. Like, it was not like a fluky. Yes. Yeah. It was, but it's also fast. It's hard to really tell until the ref points to the center.
The concern initially, I think, was less the goal crossed the line and more was Lautaro offside. But I remember that goal comes in. My wife was walking through the living room, and I was just like, "Messi's got his goal!" I sounded like Peter Drury in that moment. I wanted to hit myself, but
I had a moment. I remember watching the U.S. Iran match with our friend Trevor, and I had to sneak in from my job to watch it on a lunch break. And there was a moment in that match where somebody on the U.S. team played a cross through. It doesn't really matter who, but I think it was Weah played a cross through, and there was nobody in the box, and it was just me in this like half empty bar, but they had the sound on, and I just went, "There's nobody there," and both of the bartenders, there's just these 2 like young ladies were just like, "There's nobody there." They just like repeated it because it sounded so lame when I said it out loud. But it was that's the kind of stuff that you do when you're excited and passionate. And it was watching this with there must have been 300 people there. We had a debate. You and I had our always cheating end of year dinner on Friday, and we were debating whether or not I'm actually an extrovert or not. Or I sometimes like to pretend that I'm like an introvert / extrovert. But and then you guys sort of convinced me I really probably am just like a fully extroverted person. But watching the match today at the Black Horse, it got so crowded. I was actually literally sitting on this, I was sitting on like the ledge of the, like in the window. Like there was no room anywhere, and so I'm just sitting this ledge and I'm just like screaming, like, I'm like screaming like out instructions for what people should do. I was just so into it. And I felt like it was like I was like a video game character, and it was like I was getting like power upped, just by like the energy of people there. It just made me so happy to be witnessing something that was so great. And obviously, and I think, you said you watched it from home, I watched it at a bar, but either way, it didn't matter where you were because you knew that people all across the world were watching this thing. And
you're sharing it one way or another. I mean, I agree. Experience. And this was one of our recommendations to new soccer fans going into the World Cup is do whatever you can to get out to a bar, because that really is representative of the overwhelming emotionality of it. I think it was on the Men in Blazers Instagram account. They just posted a video of somebody in a high rise in Buenos Aires, and they're doing this panoramic video. You can see nobody. You're like that high up, but you can just hear.
Yep.
The entire town is freaking out and losing their mind.
I haven't seen that yet. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I mean, I think I would say personally for me, I would say that there was a Michigan State game that you and I saw several years ago, the famous fail to the victors, trouble with the snap play. That was the only match, the only game I've seen that actually made me cry at the end, because the emotions were so high for that one. And this one, I was starting to feel that way a little bit near the end too, just because I didn't have a particular interest in this match, but just the energy I was expending, just like enjoying the match. As weird as it's just like I was just enjoying it so much. It was just so fun that it was like by the end I was just like exhausted. We're recording this an hour later and I'm still just like my legs are like I'm just buzzing still. I'm really feeling, just walking down the street afterwards. I was like, I wanted to like stop people on the street to see if they'd watch the game. It was just a really great experience. And like you said before, maybe I said it. It doesn't matter who said it. It's probably me. It was, yeah, but it was an international communal experience, and it's just not something you get very often, right? I mean, you don't get it with the Super Bowl, really. It's even though they want it to be a global thing, it's really more of an American sport. You get it with the Olympics a little bit, but even then, there tends to be just a couple of countries that dominate. And so this is one of the few, the Oscars. They used to pretend that 1 billion people watch that. I don't think it's like a tenth of that these days. But I think this is really one of the few, a World Cup final that's really good, with some of the best players in the world. That's about as communal as it gets. It's everyone who's a sports fan was watching this game today, and there's a lot of sports fans out there. So it was just a really great shared experience. Really cool moment.
How disappointed are you as if you were a France fan or a French person for that matter? I thought it was a very wild game for them. The early substitutions in the first half, I was texting our friend group of like, how is Deschamps going to do Giroud so dirty like this? I mean, I understand that France had to change their shape and their tactics because they were just getting overrun in the midfield. But there were 4 minutes left to go, and Giroud has to get pulled off. Just wait another 4 minutes, my guy.
I mean, I guess you can't. I don't really know if this has made a difference or not. You can't argue with them scoring. It's
they
like
looked better. I concede that
it's hard
France
to say.
did look better after those substitutions. Deschamps knows what he's doing. I'm not arguing.
Yeah, I think that the Dembele sub made more sense to me because he was getting skinned by Di Maria.
He was obviously at fault for the penalty, and like that was just such a chump defensive move by Dembele.
Giroud made less sense to me because my feeling was, they weren't going to be in a counter-attacking position quite so much. Like they're going to be able to control the ball, and so I didn't really understand why they would. It's not like Giroud's lack of legs wouldn't make a difference there. It seems like what they need is a playmaker. So that one made a little less sense to me. It almost made me wonder if Giroud was harboring a minor injury or something like that. Yeah. But the way it worked out, I mean, Argentina kind of just kept controlling possession, right? I mean, we saw a little more time waste in the second half. Not egregious. I wasn't like rolling my eyes exactly. There was, but there's a few things that you'll see in almost any match where a team's got a lead, right? You're sort of, you feel a hand in your back and you crumple to the ground and, whatever, call over the medics for a minute. That's just part of the sport. But it wasn't completely out of control. And, but they really were in control. I actually felt like when it was 2-0, certainly until that pen, I thought it was much more likely that Argentina were going to score another goal than I thought it would be the other way around.
You can see why it has been such a long road for Messi and Argentina over the last decade, but they just haven't been able to get it over the line because the way it seems they tend to play as a nation is emotion and chaos is just oozing out of them. But in this match and in this tournament, Argentina had enough talent across the team. So like what you're saying, Josh, is how Argentina was still able to control a lot of the match in the face of all of this chaos, it was because they just have so many good players. We mentioned McAllister, the young player of the tournament as well through their midfield. I mean, they're the central defense. We are going through a low point, I think, around the world in center backs. So you have to go to Croatia, I guess, to get a good center back these days. Did you notice that Sergio Aguero in the stands comes down on the field after the match is over, and he's wearing a Nicolas Otamendi jersey?
Well, the Aguero, I talked about getting a little emotional. Aguero is what kind of did it for me, right? Because Aguero has been like a real good soldier. He's been totally, I mean, one of the great moments in Premier League history, maybe the greatest moment.
Sure. I was thinking of him. I was thinking of him even before I saw he was in the stands, because the football moment that comes closest to this World Cup final, I think for a lot of people, would be that Aguero winning the league for Manchester City moment against Queen's Park Rangers.
That's true. I guess I did to put that up there with my Michigan State game in terms of the.
Did you cry?
The great drama. I didn't cry, but I was screaming. I feel like I wasn't quite as like all in on the Premier League then as I was. If it happened now, oh my gosh. Gabriel Jesus to Gabriel Martinelli, the Gabes. Maybe we'll get Gabriel Margales in there as well, Brandon. The three Gabes will win it on the last minute for Arsenal this year. So I think it was really. Just a really wonderful World Cup. Really, the Di Maria move I thought really made a lot of sense. I didn't, or I shouldn't say it made a lot of sense. I was surprised when he started, because I in my head still think of him as, even though it's been like almost 10 years now, I still think of him as a Man United washout, like some guy just stunk there. And so when they announced he started, I was like, they probably won't make a big difference. Then he was dominant. I mean, even before
turns out it's Manchester United who don't know what they're doing, not Angel Di Maria. I mean, he had an incredible career at Real Madrid prior to that move, but
PSG afterwards.
You could see like the emotional fraught, like the trauma that Di Maria is going through on the bench. He's like, let's just get this home. He really wanted it, and I'm glad he got it.
Me too. It's like the first time I ever considered myself a Di Maria fan was today. It's the first.
Are we just showing ourselves as Argentina stands here? Where's the love for France?
Well, what did they do? Until the 80th minute, I mean, they just didn't do very much. I mean, if Kingsley Coman scores that goal at the end and they win 4-3, I mean, Martinez doesn't make that save, it feels more like a snatch and grab World Cup win to me than though the narrative afterwards would have been about how Argentina blew it. It would not have been about France's performance. So I mean, every minute matters, right? But but we still had to watch the first 80 minutes of that game and see Argentina dominate. And extra time was a pretty good extra time, I have to say. You and I have both seen enough extra times to know that sometimes they're basically just getting themselves ready for the pens, and that was not the case at all. They were really going for it. I think Mbappé comes out of it. It was kind of interesting actually, because it was a match where Messi gets the golden boot. He
gets the golden ball.
The golden. I'll never get those two right. He gets the golden ball. They win the World Cup, and yet it still feels like a passing the torch, right?
Everybody won. It's true.
Yeah, because I mean, Mbappe has a heroic hat trick. He wins the golden whatever. I'll never get those two correct. He gets the golden boot. And it barely cares. He practically tosses it behind him. He's so uninterested.
I mean, wouldn't you? The trophy was falling apart as he was carrying it across the stage. Who's making this crap?
He's won enough. It's fine. But he's still it becomes very clear that Messi solidifies greatest player, whatever. This stuff is all. The fun is in debating it. But then we get this moment where now it seems like Mbappe is now the player who gets to take on the torch, and I think that was really cool as well. And I just think in general, like if this game had been like an episode of Ted Lasso or something like that. Like whatever consultant they brought on would have said, like, all right, you guys got to tone it down a little bit. This is a little too dramatic. 5 goals between Messi and Mbappe. I don't think so.
Plus, let's have a VAR computer generated screenshot in which when somebody's butt factors heavily into it.
Exactly.
So there was no shortage of comedy in this match either. So.
It was such rich drama. They're not always this good. There are a lot of finals that are not this fun. We really do not hold on to this one for a few days and really soak it in just how fun it was, because you do not get World Cup finals or just big matches like this that live up to the hype that often. It reminds me of a famous Liverpool Man City match from right around this time. Actually, it was like early January. It was like 4 years ago, and Man City won that match 2-1, and it was like this heavily hyped match. It was really so much build up, and it was like, this is like it's like one of the only times I can remember two teams at the absolute height of their kind of form playing each other, and the match was actually good. It just does not happen very often, and so it was just really, it was really wonderful. And I'm glad that we did this pod, Brendan. I think it's been really fun to do the World Cup Minute with you. I think we've really, we've learned that if we, I don't know if Sirius XM Brandon wants to come call in, we could probably do our little daily. I didn't know if we could until now, so it's been good to learn. I hope. I assume that most people listening are regular Always Cheating listeners, but if not, tomorrow night we're going back to the Always Cheating podcast, and we will be doing a preview of what will be game week 17, Brandon. The Premier League comes back on Boxing Day, which is December 26th, so a week and a day from tomorrow. The Premier League will be back with a full slate of matches. I think that first week is across 3 days. I also have already done a preview pod for our Patreon supporters. That's up and available right now, so if you want to support the podcast. Yeah, and if you want, thank you. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. You get access to that. You get access to the Slack. One of my goals, Brandon, is to finally move us over to the Discord before the Premier League starts up again. I've been promising this for a long time, but I hope to finally do it. But I also, just for fun, if anyone's listening right now, as we were talking, Brandon, I created a second half league for everybody. So this is an Always Cheating second half league that anyone can join. You and I will talk more about the prizes that we give out. I think maybe we should try to do monthlies because a lot of people will be, dipping their toe in for the first time. But the code for that second half league is OZCXBN. Obviously, we'll share this in lots of other places. You don't have to write that down. But in case you want to join OZCXBN is the code. And fantasy.premierleague.com is where you can go to join. So, I'm really looking forward to the return of fantasy. I don't want to dip into that too much right now, but it's a lot of fun. It's stressful. It's exciting. There's games like every single day, basically from the 26th through, I don't even know, like the end of time. So there's just gonna be so many matches on. So if you like the World Cup,
if just another plug for fantasy, like if you loved the sweat you got from the World Cup, the only way to get a sweat from Burnley v Southampton is to play fantasy. So
you're not getting that at the Russian and Turkish bathhouse, Brandon, sadly. So I think it's going to be it'll be a lot of fun to have that back. And thank you to everyone for listening. Any final thoughts, Brandon? Anything else you want to add?
I will add that World Cup. It's coming to North America. So I guess the next time we do the World Cup Minute, we can be doing it live from actual World Cup matches. And
how many games do you think we'll see? I'm thinking we'll see at least 3. 3 seems like that's the minimum I want to see for this next.
How many in Mexico City will we see? Is the question you should.
That's a great. Exactly. I want to do some.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, the only cool thing about Qatar, it seems, is that they were able to host these matches so close together. In North America, it's going to be like a 9-hour flight to get from one match to the next. But anyway, I have so enjoyed doing this pod, and I hope to carry our listeners over to some English Premier League fantasy, because that is a great, great time.
All right. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. And that's a wrap on the 2022 World Cup. Talk to you soon.